We spend a lot of our lives trying to make things easier. We want easier jobs, easier workouts, easier diets, easier ways to make money, easier ways to accomplish our goals. And I understand why. Nobody wants life to be unnecessarily difficult, but I realized there's a strange paradox. The more difficult things you're willing to do, the more easier life can actually become. Not because life suddenly becomes less difficult, but because you made yourself more capable of handling difficult things. And once you're capable of handling more, the things that used to overwhelm you are no longer intimidating. I think there's a really simple way to understand this. I read a book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, and he has an analogy about personal growth that really made sense to me. If you give a level to yourself based on what you're capable of, say you're a level 3 person and a level 5 challenge comes upon you, that challenge is probably going to be a little bit overwhelming. Maybe you don't have the skills, maybe you don't have the confidence, the discipline, the endurance. So naturally a level 5 challenge feels pretty difficult. And so you have two choices. You can make the level 5 challenge easier, or you can become a level 5 person. Because once you become a level 5 person, the challenge is no longer intimidating. Not because the challenge changed, but because you did. And that's what I mean when I say doing hard things makes life easier. You're raising the bar for what you're capable of handling. Things that used to be difficult feel normal, and things that used to feel overwhelming become manageable. Eventually, challenges you never thought you could handle, you're prepared for. You've actually been doing this your entire life. Think about school. When you were in 5th grade, you were preparing yourself for 6th grade. And when you were in 6th grade, you were preparing yourself for 7th grade. And eventually, you were able to take classes that would have completely overwhelmed your younger self. You didn't magically become capable overnight. You gradually took on harder things, which ended up making you capable for what came next. The same thing actually happens throughout adulthood. I saw this personally happen when I started boxing. When I first started working out, I was only lifting weights and running occasionally. I did that for about a year, but eventually I got bored. I was still going to the gym, but I wasn't excited about it anymore, so I started thinking about boxing. I'd never boxed before, and to be honest, I was nervous. The first day I actually drove up to the place, but didn't leave the parking lot, and I drove out. I didn't even get out of the car. But the next day I went, I parked, took a deep breath, got out, and walked in. It sounds like a small decision, but that decision actually made a pretty big impact in my life. What's interesting is I don't think I built up the courage that day to do it. I'd spent the entire previous year going to the gym and working out. I built up some confidence, I got in shape, I got comfortable being uncomfortable. More or less, the work I had already put in gave me the ability to make the next step. We tend to think that the big decisions are what change our life, but in reality, it's the everyday small decisions that prepare us for when those big opportunities show up so we can make the correct decision. Boxing completely reignited my interest in fitness. I wasn't just working out anymore, I was obsessed with getting better at boxing. And boxing is extremely difficult. It's also very humbling. You quickly realize that it doesn't matter how big and strong you are. It's all about technique, conditioning, patience, and self-control. And if you're not prepared, you end up getting punched in the face. There aren't that many feedback mechanisms that are better than that. But something else happened. The more difficult boxing became, the more comfortable I became being uncomfortable. And that started to spill into other parts of my life. The gym taught me discipline, but boxing taught me how to stay calm when I was tired, frustrated, or even a little scared. And that changed the way I approached things outside of the gym. And this is where the snowball really starts. Take on one difficult challenge, that challenge teaches you something, and you develop a skill. That skill gives you confidence. And that confidence will get you to take on another challenge. And that challenge will introduce you to new people, new opportunities, new environments. That's exactly what happened to me with boxing. I met dozens of people, I learned how to defend myself, and I had something new to talk about with people. I also developed a completely different relationship with fitness, but the effects didn't stop there. The difficulty of boxing made other parts of my life feel easier. My job started feeling like a walk in the park. If I made a mistake at work, I knew I wasn't going to get punched in the face. If I was late for a meeting, it wasn't a big deal. So I became more willing to volunteer for things. I started learning new skills. I started volunteering to do speeches and presentations, something I never would have said yes to before. Eventually, speaking in front of a group of people was no longer intimidating. I became more comfortable talking to people one-on-one. I was more comfortable standing up for myself, which made me more comfortable meeting new people. I even became confident enough to start a YouTube channel. And none of these things came directly from boxing. That's the interesting part. The difficulty of boxing didn't make my job easier, it made my perception of what was difficult different. That's the snowball. And that's why you have to be careful about judging an opportunity based on how difficult it is. You can't always predict where one difficult decision will take you. You might want to start working out because you want to lose 20 pounds. Next thing you know, you discovered a new sport you love. You might start learning a skill because you're curious, and next thing you know, you're turning it into a new career. You might start building something on your own, and next thing you know, you meet people you never would have otherwise. You might say yes to something that scares you and discover that you're actually pretty good at it. Doing difficult things increases the number of things you're capable of doing, and the more capable you become, the more opportunities you have. There's another interesting thing that happens when you become more capable. People start depending on you. Your family depends on you, your friends depend on you, your coworkers depend on you, your clients, your teammates depend on you, your business depends on you, even your future depends on you. And that can be a really powerful feeling, because when people depend on you, you can't always just do whatever you want. You have responsibilities, you have things that need to get done. Sometimes you have to do something because it's important, even when you don't feel like it. That's adulthood. That's responsibility. That's discipline. And strangely enough, responsibility can actually give your life more meaning, because now you have something to care about beyond your immediate comfort. You have a reason to wake up in the morning. You have a reason to stay on your grind. You have something you're trying to protect, something you're trying to build. But there's an important part of this that I think gets overlooked. You need to know what you're working toward, because if you don't know what you want, you can end up spending your entire life pursuing something that people want for you. You can spend years chasing money because everybody told you money was important. You can chase a career and end up working your life away because somebody told you this job gives you this status. You can try to impress people because you thought that's what you were supposed to do, but eventually you wake up and you realize this isn't even what I wanted. Having clear goals gives you something to measure your decisions against. You're able to ask, is this something that's going to get me to where I want to go? That makes it easier to say no to things that aren't aligned to your goals. If you want longevity, eating fast food every day is probably not going to help. If you want a relationship, being dishonest and unreliable probably isn't going to get you there. If you want financial freedom and you're wasting all of your time, you're not developing useful skills, that probably isn't the best strategy. Knowing what you want doesn't mean that every decision becomes easy. It means that difficult decisions become more obvious. You can say, I want that, but I want this more. And that's a major part of discipline. Now, none of this means that comfort is bad. Rest is important. Relaxation is important. Enjoying your life is important. The problem is when comfort becomes your default. Because if you stop challenging yourself, you can actually move backwards. If you stop using your muscle, you become less strong. If you stop using your brain, you become less capable. If you isolate yourself, your social world will shrink. If you stop pursuing anything meaningful, you can lose direction. And that's where the snowball effect can work in the opposite direction. You avoid one difficult thing, that makes avoiding the next difficult thing easier, and you become less capable. That makes the next challenge become even more intimidating, so you avoid that too. And eventually, your comfort zone becomes smaller instead of larger. That's why there's an important difference between relaxing and living in comfort. Rest is something you do so that you can continue. Comfort becomes a problem and you stop having anything to move toward. It's really easy to see these principles when you look at somebody who's completely trying to change their life. Sometimes just knowing something is bad for you isn't enough to create a lasting change. Oh, I know I shouldn't do this. That's not always a powerful enough reason. Sometimes what changes is that you build something worth protecting. A relationship, your career, your health, your family, your sobriety, your home, your future. When you start building a better life, you actually have something to lose. And that can completely change the way you look at your decisions. You're no longer just asking, is this good or bad? You're asking, is this something that's going to help me build the life I want? That's a much more powerful question. All of this is the reason I think fitness is so valuable. Fitness gives you a controlled environment where you can practice doing difficult things. You don't always want to work out. Lifting is difficult. Running hurts. You get sore. Sometimes you just rather stay home. And dieting isn't any fun either. Sometimes chicken and vegetables aren't what you're craving. It's way easier to get Chick-fil-A. Tastes better. It's already made. They got delicious sauce and fries. Sometimes that's perfectly fine. But if you're trying to reach your goals, sometimes you have to say, I want that, but I'm going to choose something else. Every time you make that decision, you're practicing. You're teaching yourself, I can tolerate discomfort. I don't have to give in to every single impulse. I can choose what I want in the long term instead of what I want right now. And eventually, what you're doing in fitness spills over into your everyday life. Think about what happens to your hands when you repeatedly lift. Your body adapts. You develop these calluses on your hands. Your mind can do that too. Every time you do something difficult instead of avoiding it, your mind develops a callus. You gain more mental toughness, and now you're less shocked by discomfort. You become less afraid of difficult situations. You start thinking to yourself, I've done hard things before, I'd probably do this. That's how you go from being a level 3 person to a level 5 person. You don't wait until you just magically can handle the level 5 problem. You have to develop that person. You take on similar challenges that make you capable of handling that level 5 challenge, and then you do something harder and something harder until you realize, you look back one day and you say, that one thing that scared me is no longer intimidating anymore. It's not because the world just got easier, it's because you became stronger. And that's why I don't think the goal should be to make life easier. The goal should be to become capable of handling the life that you want. Because the life that you want is probably going to require something from you. More responsibility, more discipline, more resilience, more skills, more courage. You don't develop those by avoiding difficult situations. You do something hard, you develop a skill, and that gives you confidence. Confidence makes you willing to take on something bigger. That challenge creates new opportunities. Those opportunities introduce you to new people and experiences. You take on more responsibility. You develop purpose, and then you become capable of handling even more. That's the snowball. So maybe the question is not, how can I make my life easier? Maybe it's, what can I do to make me more capable? Because you don't want to build a life where nothing's difficult. The goal is to become the person that can take on whatever life requires of you. Do the hard things now so the hard things don't have to be so hard. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know. Till next time, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.